raising villains the right way. It had, the premise to become one of the great manhwas. It had a genuinely great cast. In the first 10-20 chapters made us feel that it could be another really great manhwa, but it destroyed that potential. It all comes down to three mistakes that the author made. The first one completely destroyed the tension. The second one, made us feel the villains as completely forgettable characters. And the third one killed the very premise that made people fall in love with this manhwa. The beginning was really great. It was five children who were destined to become really great villains, and MC comes along and he was like isekai, so he basically knows the story, adopts these kids and he wants to make them into good children, so he starts raising them in this shelter. Then it gets better, while the MC thinks that he's simply raising kids, these kids go and behind his back build a secret organization. They start taking care of his enemies one by one. The background characters, they start to think of MC as some kind of really big mastermind who was plotting things, who was really powerful, and it's kind of like overlord. It was at this point, the children starts growing, they just start getting stronger, and the MC, he starts to learn magic, and till here the story was good. But here's the turning point of all, that went downhill. So the first major problem was the power scaling. It completely break. The MC goes into this cave and he unlocks this power of forgotten gods, and he gains a really ridiculous amount of power. And then what happens is he starts to fight these gods that are literally descending upon here. And what happens is, when villains get introduced, you have to build the story, you have to build it, you read Mura manhwas. So what happens is, they build those stories, they build sects, they build the stories where the bottom no name characters, they talk about them, and you keep getting stronger, you keep facing different enemies and different bosses, and they all talk about him in fear, and everyone fears him. And eventually, as you go along the story, and 50 chapters later, you then meet the final boss, and then when you meet that final boss, you're scared of him. You're like, holy shit, this is the dude. But here, what happens is, this literal god descended upon him, and we don't even care, because the MC has earned ridiculous amount of power. He's just one shotting them or whatever. And in this, you actually feel the story has not actually earned this enemy. This is this is the main reason why a lot of manhwas, a lot of stories in general go wrong, because stories have to be made so that you actually worry that what will actually happen. I have read fiction, and what happens is, you can't guess what's coming next. This is not satisfying. This is not satisfying at all to watch some MC, some ridiculously powerful MC. It's like watching slime, because he will just take care of all the enemies. He'll just ask Raphael to give him just another clue, just give him another power up, and he will just take care of the enemies. It's like watching that. So this is the first major point. Second, my point, as I have stated before, nothing gets a proper build up. Strong villains aren't memorable because they're strong. If an evil god is mentioned for 50 chapters and then he's introduced, it feels something. But here what happens is, he just randomly, he's traveling, and then he just meets an evil god. It doesn't feel satisfying at all. It just think about it. If the story went something like this instead, that in the 50 chapters, you're traveling different kingdoms, and their rituals, their cults formed, and every kingdom has some kind of ancient rituals that worship different things, that are scared of different things. Different phenomena happen, and they are making sacrifices, and all of these different things. And when you collect these different ideas, and they all point out to that same idea of that evil god, and you reach a place, you reach a destination where, and this cult is actually working to revive this evil god, and you fight them to stop it. And as you're fighting it, you're this is insane battle, and upon the last turns, somehow this evil god gets revived, and now he's stronger than ever. The power scaling and everything, the build up that goes into the story, everyone is scared of him, everyone's running, and it feels like the world is about to fall apart, and you can't literally guess what will happen. MC has no idea if he can beat him or not. So if the story was built something like this, I would appreciate it more. What they did was like they just literally introduced like the evil god in one chapter, and in next chapter he was literally like, no, no, bye bye. The third part that I feel like really wrong about the story is, it just, the story keeps expanding, the characters just keep expanding, there is no point to them. He just goes to different kingdoms, meets different people, and I don't feel a thing, because there was no build up in the story like the last point. But you keep expanding the kingdom. If you could have marked this one kingdom, this another kingdom, and this another kingdom, and there's like ocean across it, and these three kingdoms are fighting for some different things, different ideologies, and you could have introduced them, and like stayed 50, 60 chapters in one kingdom, stayed in the market, went to the slaves, went to the slums, and went to the king, went to the nobles, and then went different kingdom. There you have seen different like elves and different species, and you explored that kingdom, and you met the people, you met all sectors of people in that kingdom, and then you went to another kingdom, and when you explore the entire world, you feel like, okay, like something is wrong, something's like these different ideologies, something is like trying to manipulate them. Think about it, if the story went something like this, but the story just goes like MC just goes to different kingdoms, and someone underestimates him, and he shows his power muscles, his magic, and old forgotten god magic, and then oh my god, oh my god, who is this guy, bro? Like, this is like such a cliche concept that is so boring to watch. The premise that made us fall in love with this manhwa, that barely matters anymore. These five kids who are like going to become like really big villains, they their power is like nothing anymore. They just sit on Discord every weekend and talk about how great the MC is. So, final thoughts. Would I recommend this manhwa? No, definitely no, because right now I don't know where it is going. It just keeps on expanding, new kingdoms, new characters, and most of the manhwas that go downhill this path never recover. So if this gets better later, I don't know, but right now I don't think I would like try to read it and new more chapters. And yeah, I would also suggest you maybe because listen, this manu has a great start, but now it's just going downhill, so there's no point like staying, and I don't think it's going to get better.